We're learning troubling new details about the treatment of the 4 Israeli hostages that were rescued on Saturday. A doctor in charge of medical treatment for the hostages tells CNN that they were beaten while in Hamas captivity in Gaza. That doctor describes the 8 months in captivity as, quote, a harsh experience with a lot of abuse almost every day. CNN's Paula Hancock is live for us in Tel Aviv with the details. Paula, what more can you tell us about what this doctor is revealing?
Well, Boris, I just spoke to Dr. Itai Pesach. He is leading the team that's really doing the medical treatment for these 4 hostages. And he said that they did undergo daily, sometimes hourly, physical, mental and other abuse, saying that they were beaten. He also spoke about their medical condition, saying that even though outwardly they appeared to be in good condition, all 4 of them were malnourished. Also pointing out that the lack of protein in their diet meant that their muscles had started to waste, and the fact that, of course, they were held in captivity, locked in apartments, not able to move around. He also said that they had significant health issues at this point. There were days, he said, and times where there was no food, and there were other times where there was food. But he also spoke about the psychological damage done to these 4 hostages. And he was also the doctor that was looking after the hostages that were released back in November of last year. And he said the psychological trauma and difference between these 2 sets of hostages was significant. The fact that these 4 had been in captivity for so much longer, talking about the fact that you start to lose hope, and that is an extremely difficult psychological position to be in. And he also pointed out that worries him about those that are still being held in Gaza, slowly losing hope that they will be released. Now, he said that they've only been with him now for 48 hours, just over that. He is not pushing them to talk about their captivity, but they are offering different stories about what happened while they were held in captivity. And he said it really does defy belief what these hostages had to go through. Boris?
And Paula, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel. We know he met with Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier. He was set to meet with other Israeli officials, including one minister who resigned from the war cabinet, right?
Yes, Benny Gantz, he's expected to meet tomorrow. Now, Benny Gantz was very supportive of this ceasefire and hostage proposal that the US president has publicly acknowledged, saying that it is actually based on the Israeli proposal. But he also met with the Israeli Prime Minister today. Now, the line we've heard from the Biden administration is that they are waiting for an official response from Hamas as to whether or not they're going to agree to this proposal, saying that Israel has already agreed to the proposal. It's not completely true, though. We know that Benjamin Netanyahu, in some of his public statements, has suggested otherwise. So he would have met with the Israeli Prime Minister today, and certainly it would have been a case of trying to convince Netanyahu as well that this is the way to go forward. Now, we know that he did say to him that the world is behind this proposal, that there will be support for Benjamin Netanyahu if he goes ahead with this proposal. But at this point, we do know also that Hamas has not given an official response. They gave an initial positive response to this 3-stage deal, which is on the table at this point. But there is one man who has to agree with it, and that is Yahya Sinwar. He's the head of Hamas in Gaza, likely in a tunnel somewhere. And as of now, the official response just hasn't come. Boris?
Paula Hancock, live for us from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much, Paula. We're now seeing for the first time video of the moment 3 of those hostages were rescued by IDF forces. This is video released moments ago by Israeli police. The body cam video showing the harrowing moments as the soldiers entered a building with their guns. That's when they find the 3 of the 4 hostages cowering inside that building. Brianna?
Yeah, really unbelievable. And for more on all of this, let's bring in CNN Global Affairs analyst Barak Ravid. He's also the politics and foreign policy reporter for Axios. Tell us a little bit about this video that we're seeing, Barak.
Yes, I think you can see that it's quite a remarkable look on how such an operation takes place. I've never seen anything like this, that you see from from the cameras on the soldiers, how they enter this building through this olive grove, go into the building from the window, and then go into the room where the hostages are taken, and you can hear him saying in Hebrew, speak in Hebrew, so that the hostages will understand that they're there to rescue them and that they're not Hamas or anybody else. And there's even this one anecdote in the video. You can see how one of the soldiers fist bumps one of the hostages, and it's really a remarkable thing.
No, it certainly is, that moment where you first see the hostages. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the efforts to come to a ceasefire and hostage release agreement, which is obviously seen as the way to release more hostages. And during his meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterated that the U.S. and other world leaders stand by the comprehensive ceasefire and hostage deal that President Biden laid out so publicly. Are you learning anything more about today's meeting here in the aftermath of this raid to get these hostages?
So not yet. It just ended not very long ago. I don't have any details on what exactly happened other than the official readout, which is very, very general. But I think that, there's one point that needs to be clear. The hostage deal proposal that is on the table is an Israeli proposal. It was approved by consensus by the Israeli War Cabinet. It's Netanyahu's proposal. Whether he is distancing himself somewhat from it for domestic political reason is not going to change the fact that it's his proposal. And therefore, if he says no, it means that he basically backed off from the proposal, which he did not until now. Netanyahu did not back off from the proposal. It's still on the table. And this is why I think we're still waiting for Hamas. And it's going to get interesting if Hamas is going to do what everybody thinks it's going to do, meaning say, yes, but. And then the ball will go back to Netanyahu's court, and then there will be the real decision moment when Netanyahu will have to decide whether he is jumping in to this deal or not.
Yeah, does he accept that but, whatever it is that comes back? Blinken is also, Barak, and I know you're keeping such a close eye on this, expected to meet with Benny Gantz during this trip. Of course, Gantz just resigned from the war cabinet in protest of Netanyahu's policies and his inability to obtain a ceasefire and hostage deal. Has Gantz's resignation really, done much? What's the aftermath been like?
So I think what we know from the public opinion polls that were published just like an hour ago on 3 main television networks in Israel showed that Benny Gantz's move to leave the government happened for him too late, meaning the response from the Israeli public was that Gantz's number went down, and a lot of his voters went to other opposition parties, and in average he lost 4 seats in the polls by withdrawing from the government, and those 4 seats did not go to Netanyahu. They went to 2 other of Netanyahu's political rivals. So for Benny Gantz, it is pretty clear that if he wanted to leave the government, he should have done it long before.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you point that out. Over the weekend, of course, as we saw that hostage rescue that we just watched the video of, we now know, right, that the U.S. aided Israel in terms of mainly intel support, no boots on the ground. The U.S. has been very clear that even though there was a helicopter extraction near that pier that was built by the U.S. to deliver aid, that pier had nothing to do with the operation. What do you make of this sort of dance of tough rhetoric and negotiations, but obviously quite enduring military and intel coordination?
I think that for Biden himself, from President Biden himself and his team, the issue of the hostages has become almost personal. not only because there are American hostages there, but because Biden, I think, dealt with this issue personally for hundreds of hours since October 7th. And when you go and ask families of hostages, that some of them are dual Israeli US nationals, they will tell you that they feel that Biden cares much more about them and about their family members who are held hostage than some members of the Israeli government. And this is something you hear from many, many hostage families. And I think that when it comes to Biden, he wants to get the hostages out, and more than that, and you hear it from all of his team, that they want to get justice for October 7th, and this means taking out Yahya Sinwar and other Hamas officials.
Barak Ravid, it's always great to have you and to get the real story on what's going on. Thank you so much for being with us.